Hi everyone, welcome to the 2017 SRECDelaware Procurement Program webinar. Hopefully you can all hear me. We'll get started in just a few minutes. And just a note, if you're planning on calling into the webinar, the PIN number did change from what was posted on the website last week. So the PIN number to call in is now 111637#. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and get started. My name is Lauren. I'm with Incline, and I'll be giving the webinar today. If you participated in the past, I've given the webinars in the past, and I answer all the customer service calls and questions. So should be a good webinar today. So the agenda for today's webinar, we're going to give a brief overview of the 2017 program, go over changes from the 2016 program, then we'll go through a sample application, and then at the end we'll do a questions and answers section. There's a chat function where you can chat us your questions after the webinar is over, and we'll answer all those questions as best we can at the end. Okay, so for a program overview, so the 2017 SRECDelaware program will commence with June 2017 SRECs. So any SRECs created prior to June 2017 are not eligible for the program. Those will be up to the customer to sell elsewhere. And if you do win a place in the program, you'll need to end all other contracts with other aggregators or brokers prior to the creation of June 2017 SRECs, as those SRECs will be sold through the SRECDelaware program. So you can still sell any SRECs prior to June 2017 with those aggregators, but nothing afterwards. So the program accepts bid-based applications, so there's no administratively set pricing. When you place a bid, you'll bid in for the number of SRECs and the price of the SRECs you want to sell, and the lowest prices will be accepted through the program. All contracts through the program are 20-year contracts. There's no exceptions to that. And for the first 10 years of your contract, you'll receive your bid price. And for the second 10 years of the contract, you'll receive $35 per SREC. And then there are bonuses for Delaware Parts and Delaware Labor. We'll go over those bonuses in more detail in just a little bit. The program is bid through a tiered system. So we have the application is broken into tiers based on facility size and interconnection date. And we'll also go through those tiers in more detail in just a few minutes here. So the basic requirements for the program, in order to be accepted in the program, your product must have or be eligible for Delaware state certification. Those certification numbers are given out by the Delaware Public Service Commission, and all applicants are responsible for obtaining those Delaware state certification numbers on their own. So we won't give you those certification numbers or apply for you. You'll need to apply through the Delaware Public Service Commission for those numbers, and you can contact them with more information about the application process for that and how to obtain those. Another requirement is that projects must be operational within 12 months of the award date. So once you have been awarded a contract, we give you 1 year to complete the build of that system, interconnect the system, and get that Delaware state certification number. Revenue grade meters are required for the program. If you're not sure if you have a revenue grade meter, please let us know. We can help you out with that. You can also contact your solar installer, and they should be able to help you. But if you're not sure, you can always let us know what equipment you have or send us a picture, and we'll let you know if that meets the requirements of our program. So now we'll talk about the Delaware parts and labor bonuses. So we do give out 10% bonuses for having Delaware parts, and then another 10% bonus for Delaware labor. You can tell if you have these bonuses by looking at your Delaware state certification number. And here we have an example of what your certification number would look like. So it's always DE-5 or 6 numbers -01. And then the next part of the certification number is where you'll want to look to see if you have Delaware parts and labor bonuses. So if you have a P, that means you have a parts bonus. If you have a W there, that means you have a workforce or labor bonus. And so that's where you'll see if you have those bonuses. The eligibility for these bonuses are determined by the Delaware Public Service Commission. So again, you can contact them to see if you qualify or to apply for these bonuses. So please double check your certification number before you apply for the program to ensure that you have those bonuses. If you do apply saying you have those bonuses but you actually don't, your contract can be subject to cancellation. So it's really important that you apply with the bonuses that you actually have. Like I said, it's 10% bonus for parts and 10% bonus for labor, and this applies to your SREC payments. So say, for example, you bid in at $100 in SREC, but you have both a bonus for parts and a bonus for labor, you would be paid $120 in SREC. So a $10 bonus for each of those bonuses. If you bid in $100 and you only have a Delaware labor bonus, you'd be paid $110. If you had no bonuses, you would just get your bid price of $100. So that's how paying out those bonuses works. The parts and labor bonuses will only come into play during the auction if there's a bid tie. So contract award preferences, if there's a bid tie, do go to those systems that have Delaware parts and labor bonuses. And we'll talk about bid ties a little more in depth in just a few minutes. So bid deposits. So we do require bid deposits if a system does not yet have a Delaware state certification number. The bid deposit is equal to $100 per kilowatt, and that's of the nameplate capacity. So we round the bid deposits using standard rounding rules. So say you had a 4.2 kilowatt system, you'd have to pay $400 for your bid deposit. If you had a 4.9 kilowatt system, it would be $500 for the bid deposit. So that's how we calculate those. Your bid deposit will be returned to you if either your application is not successful or once you provide us with a Delaware state certification number. So if you do bid into the auction and your bid is not accepted, your bid deposit will be returned within 1 to 2 weeks. If you are a new system and your application is accepted, we'll hold on to that bid deposit until you provide us with the certification number, and then we'll return that money to you. The only way you don't receive your bid deposit back is if you have a successful application but don't follow through with the contract. So if you win a spot but for some reason or another you don't follow through with the contract, we will keep that bid deposit and it will not be returned. So performance credit support. So this only applies to projects that are greater than 500 kilowatts. So if your system is under 500 kilowatts, you don't need to worry about this slide. But basically, if your system is over 500 kilowatts, there are damages that you must pay for underperformance. So that's if you produce 80%, or if you don't produce 80% or less of your SREC commitment. And the performance credit support can be delivered to the SEU by cash, letter of credit, or other forms of collateral acceptable to the SEU. So we'll contact you if you do win a spot in the auction and this applies to you, and we'll contact you about how you plan to deliver that to the SEU. And the performance guarantee for years 1 through 10 is equal to 5% of the value of your annual SREC commitment. For years 11 through 20, it's equal to 10% of the value of your annual SREC commitment. So again, if you're in this situation and you do win a spot in the auction, we'll contact you about how you plan to handle this with the SEU. So a timeline for the auction. So the bid window is going to open on May 29th at 9 a.m. And you'll have 2 weeks to apply to the program. That bid window will close on June 9th at 5 p.m., which is the close of business. You also need to have your bid deposit in by June 9th as well, by the close of business. And then on June 15th, we'll announce the results. We'll send out emails to all participants in the auction, whether your bid was accepted or not. If your bid was accepted, with this email, we'll send you further instructions on how to go about managing your accepted contract. So now we'll go over the tiers for the 2017 program. So there's two main categories in the tiers. There's new systems and existing systems. New systems are projects interconnected on or after June 10th, 2016, and existing systems are projects interconnected before June 10th, 2016. Within those two categories, the tiers are broken out by nameplate capacity. So in the new category, there's N1, N2, N3, and N4. And you can see on this slide the breakpoints for those tiers. And then within existing systems, there's E1, E2, and E3. And again, you can see the breakpoint there on these slides. This year, there will once again be a pooled tier for N1, E1, and E2. There's 4,400 SRECs available in that pooled tier. Then there's an additional 2,300 SRECs available in the N2 tier and 3,300 SRECs available in the N3 tier. So within those tiers, there's 10,000 SRECs. Once those 10,000 SRECs have been allotted, Delmarva Power has the option to procure up to 10,000 additional SRECs, and that's where the new N4 and E3 tiers come in. They can bid for those additional 10,000 SRECs. So when you're bidding, we'll automatically on your application tell you which tier you're in based on your system size and interconnection date you provide to us. But if you have any questions about what tier you're in, just let us know and we can help you out with that. So now I'm just briefly going to talk a little bit more about the new tiers, N4 and E3. The 2017 program is the first year we've had these tiers. So these tiers, like I said on the previous slide, do not bid for the initial 10,000 SRECs. But once those 10,000 SRECs have been procured, Delmarva Power has the option to procure up to 10,000 more. And those 10,000 extra SRECs will be the least expensive SRECs available from any tier. So that's where the N4 and E3 systems can bid in to win those additional 10,000 SRECs. And just one note about those two tiers. For the other tiers, the last 10 years of the contract is fixed at $35. But for these two tiers, N4 and E3, if their bid price is less than $35, then they will only receive their bid price for the full 20 years. So they won't receive an increased price of $35 on the back end. But that's just for the N4 and E3 tiers. Okay, so now we'll talk a little bit about the award process. So at 5 p.m. on June 9th, the auction closes. That's the last day to submit applications, and also your bid deposits need to be in on that day by 5 p.m. Once we have all the bids in and the auction's closed, the computer system will sort the lowest price bids in each tier or in the combined tier of N1, E1, and E2. And then within the capacity of each tier, the lowest priced bids will be awarded contracts. It's also at this time that Delmarva Power will review the bids and decide how many extra SRECs up to 10,000 they're going to accept. And then on June 15th, we'll announce the results of the auction. Okay, so now we'll talk a little bit about what would happen if there's a tie scenario. So a tie scenario would be the event in which multiple bids at the same price oversubscribe a tier. And it's in everyone's best interest to avoid a tie scenario, so we like to give a hint here that you can bid in dollars and cents. So you don't just have to bid a whole number, you can bid in cents as well. But if there is a tie scenario, first we'll pull out all the systems that have both Delaware labor and equipment bonuses, and those bids will be awarded contracts. If a tie remains after those are selected, a winner will be determined by the lottery among Delaware labor and equipment systems only. However, if capacity still remains, all remaining projects that are involved in the tie scenario will be given 5 days to submit a revised bid, and then winners will be selected by lowest priced revised bid. If a tie still remains after revised bids have been submitted, then a lottery will be conducted among Delaware labor or equipment systems, so those systems with only one bonus. And then if capacity remains, then a lottery will be conducted among systems with neither Delaware labor or equipment. So like I said in an earlier slide, this is the only time when having a Delaware labor or equipment bonus would help within the bidding process. But notwithstanding the above, if there's a bidding tie in the combined tier, then new systems will always prevail over existing systems. In-state content and labor will then prevail, and if a tie remains, there'll be the revised bid with 5 days to submit the revised bid. So like I said, if you want to avoid being involved in this tie scenario, it's a good hint to bid in dollars and cents. Okay, next we'll talk about a unique situation that some customers find themselves in where they have multiple facilities bidding under one contract. So an example of a customer that would be in this situation would be like an apartment complex or an office building where there's multiple different facilities, but they're either on the same parcel of land or they share a utility interconnection point. So in those scenarios, those multiple facilities would need to be bid together under one contract. And the only exception to this is partial fills from a previous solicitation. So if you do have a partial fill, you can bid the remaining capacity of that system under a new contract. You don't need to bid under the old contract. So if you are in this situation, let us know and we can help you through the bid process with those multiple facilities. Next, we'll talk about owner representatives. So SREC owners can choose to use an owner representative or not use an owner representative. So they can submit bids and manage their SREC contracts on their own, or they can choose to employ an owner representative. So an owner representative would be a third party, such as your old SREC broker, aggregator, or perhaps your installer that would help you manage your applications and SREC contracts. So like I said, you can choose to have an owner representative or not. And SREC owners can change or remove owner representative oversight at any time. So if at any time you'd like to remove your owner representative, just let us know, and that is your right to do that. You can also add an owner representative anytime. So if you bid in on your own, but then decide you want to use an owner representative, you can do that as well. Okay, just a few other notes on the auction. So Delmarva Power does have the right to exercise price discretion and rejects any bids over a certain threshold that they deem to be reasonable. So they have used that in the past, in past auctions. Also, any bids over the alternative compliance price of $400 will be automatically rejected, so you won't be able to submit a bid over $400. If any tier is undersubscribed due to rejected bids, so that's if Delmarva Power does use their price discretion, then bids from any tier can win those SRECs besides the new N4 and E3 tier. However, if a tier is undersubscribed due to insufficient bidding, then bids from any tier, including N4 and E3, can win those SRECs. So just keep that in mind. Now we'll just talk about changes from last year's program for those of you that had customers bid in last year. Just a few changes for this year. So the major change, which we've already talked about, is that we now have a tier N4 and E3, which allows systems larger than 2 megawatts to bid into the auction, which in the past they were not allowed to bid into the auction. Also, the number of additional SRECs Delmarva can opt to buy through the auction has been increased from 6,000 SRECs to 10,000 SRECs. So a significant increase there in the number of SRECs that Delmarva can buy once they've already bought the initial 10,000. Okay, so now we're going to go through an application example. So the application window, as I've said several times, will be open from 9 a.m. on Monday, the 29th of May until 5 p.m. on Friday, the 9th of June. So you have a full 2 weeks to submit your bids. You can start a bid at any time, save it, and return. And you can also revise your bid at any time within that window. So there's no preference given to those who bid early compared to those who bid later, but we would recommend you try to get your bid started as early as possible just in case you have any questions or need to contact us for any help. We have the full 2 weeks to help you, but you can submit your bids up until 5 p.m. on Friday. All applications must be submitted online on our online portal, which is www.srecdelaware.com. We won't accept any paper applications, so only online. Facility information from previous unsuccessful applications is still stored in our system, so if you applied in the past but your bid was not accepted, you can just log in with your old login information and that application will be there for you to reapply to the program. You can only submit one application per facility, so you can't submit multiple bids hoping one will win. You can only have one application per facility. And applications can be saved and returned to before final submission. So if you start your application, you need to get more information, or you want to think over your bid price, you can come back and finish your bid at any time during that 2-week window. Like we already said, your application can be submitted by either the facility owner or by an owner representative. Okay, so getting started with the application. So the first thing you need to do is create an account on the SREC Delaware website if you don't already have an account. So when you go to the website, in the upper right-hand corner, there's both a sign up and a login button. So if you click the green sign up button, you'll be brought to this user registration page where you just need to put your email, a password, and your basic address and contact information to create an account. Once you create an account, you'll be emailed an activation link, which you'll need to click on to activate your account. And then once you have activated your account, you can log in to start the application. If you already have an SREC Delaware account, you can just simply log into your existing account and you'll be able to create applications from there. So once you've logged in, you'll be brought to your main dashboard page, which will say hello and your name, and there'll be a big blue button that says New Application. If you have existing facilities, you'll also see those here on this main page. So you can either reapply with an existing application that was not accepted in previous years, or create a totally new application for a new facility. Okay, so if you're creating a new application, the first step of the application is to fill in your basic facility information. So every facility, you need to just give it a name, enter the address of the facility, and then the basic solar information, so the nameplate capacity, type of module used, inverter type, tilt, azimuth, and then you'll also need to provide on this step, if you have one, your Delaware State Certification number. You need to confirm that you'll either have a revenue grade meter installed or that you already have a revenue grade meter. And then just to note, any N3 system we require that has online revenue grade metering. So step 2 is to fill in the owner contact information. So this is just simple information, the name of the owner, their contact information if it differs from the installation address, and then a phone number or email address where they can be reached. Step 3 is to select an owner representative. So on this step, you can either skip this step if you're going to manage your own facility, or you can select an owner representative from our list of owner representatives we have. Please note that if you want to be added to the owner representative list, you'll just need to contact us so we can add your contact information there, or you can enter manually the information for an owner representative if they're not already on our list. And also, if you are a homeowner, please note you need to confirm with the owner representative that they're going to manage your contract before you select them. So you can't just select someone and think that they'll complete your application. You need to contact them first. Step 4 is the step where you'll need to enter your tier, your bid price, and the number of SRECs you're going to bid into the auction. So the tier selection will actually be pre-filled based on the interconnection date and whether or not you provide a Delaware State Certification number and your nameplate capacity. So we'll pre-select that for you. If you don't think that the pre-selected tier is correct, probably you entered something incorrectly on the first step. So just go back and double check that, or just give us a call and we'll take a look at that for you. And then your bid price is what you'll want to enter next. So this is the price you'll receive for your SRECs for the first 10 years. Please note that the bid price you're selected at is firm, so you can't change it once your bid's been accepted. And then the last thing on this step is the SREC commitment. So we'll actually also pre-fill this based on your total first-year energy output that we calculate. But if you know that your system produces more or less SRECs than that, you can update that SREC commitment box to be the number of SRECs you'd like to commit to the auction. Also note on this step that we will pay you for up to 110% of your SREC commitment. So if you bid 10 SRECs into the auction but you end up producing 11, we will buy all 11, so we'll buy up to 10% more. But anything above that will not be sold through the contract. Okay, last thing on this step is selecting if you have a parts and labor bonus. So we already talked about this earlier, but please make sure that when you're selecting the bonuses that you qualify for, you really do qualify for those bonuses. So here we have an example of sample Delaware State Certification numbers and what they would look like if you have those bonuses. So like we said, please double check that. If you have any questions about what you qualify for, please give us a call and we can let you know based on your certification number what you should select on this step. And if you do bid for bonuses that you're not eligible for, your contract can be subject to cancellation. So we will double check all of those and make sure that you're only getting paid for what you qualify for. And also note that there are no longer solar panels being manufactured in Delaware. So if you have a newer system, chances are you do not qualify for the parts bonus unless you had an installer that had old solar panels stockpiled that were manufactured in Delaware. So the fifth and final step of the application is to submit your bid deposit if that's required for your application. So this will only be required if your system does not already have a Delaware State certification number. Like we said, it's equal to $100 per kilowatt. And so this bid deposit can be submitted via credit card, electronic wire, ACH payment, or a letter of credit. So on this step is where you will submit that information. So we have transfer identification number that we use to track payments. So if you're either doing a wire transfer or an ACH payment, you'll be provided this unique transfer identification number that you'll need to put on your wire so that we know the bid deposit we receive is for your application. And so we'll give you that information, and we'll also have on this step our information for where you need to send the wire or the ACH payment. If you are an installer, an aggregator, or owner representative, and you have a large number of systems that you want to send over all on one wire or one transfer, that's fine. We'll just need you to submit an Excel spreadsheet or some kind of spreadsheet to us with all of the transfer identification numbers that are being included in that one wire so that we can make sure we apply them to the correct application. So the last thing on this step is you need to put in your information for returning, when we return your bid deposit to you. So we require that information for wires, ACHs, and credit card payments. So if you're making any three of those payment types for your bid deposit, we'll need you to enter your banking information on this step, so we'll be able to send you a direct deposit once your bid deposit is ready to be returned. Okay, so the last step on the application is just to e-sign your name and submit the application. So once you do that, your bid's been submitted. You'll receive this congratulations screen letting you know that your bid has been successfully submitted, and then you'll be able to go to your dashboard screen, which will look like this, and it'll show that your application was being submitted and it's in the process of being reviewed. So we do verify each application after it's submitted, so it might be showing reviewed probably for either a few hours or maybe up to a day before we verify your bid. And if we always review them, if we have any questions or if something looks off, we'll contact you to resolve that before we verify the bid. But once you're on your dashboard, you'll only see applications that you've submitted for the 2017 program. So just a note, on those of you that also might be participating in the Joint Green Energy Program. So if you received a grant through the Green Energy Fund program, you can still apply to the SRECDelaware Procurement Program. That's fine. You can receive both the state grant and participate in this program. The only way you can't participate in the SRECDelaware program is if you're participating in the SEU Upfront SREC Purchase Program. So you can't participate in both. So if you've already submitted a Part 2 application or if you've been paid through the SEU Upfront Purchase Program, you cannot participate in the SRECDelaware program. And we'll be double checking and cross-referencing those two programs to make sure we don't have people applying to both. So just a few notes on what the next steps would be if your bid is accepted. So once your bid's been accepted, we'll send you an email letting you know how to access your transfer agreement and the other documents we need you to sign and return to us. And we'll require all those be signed and returned by August 1st, 2017. So we give you about a month and a half to review all those documents and submit them to us. Also note that if you have a contract with another SREC aggregator or broker, you must terminate that contract with them, as all SRECs created June 2017 and forward will be brought through the SRECDelaware program. Your system will be managed in the GATS account of the SRECDelaware program. So if you already have your own GATS account, we'll be transferring your system into our GATS account, and you'll be able to close your GATS account. So you're not allowed through this program to manage your own system in GATS. It has to be transferred to the SRECDelaware program's GATS account. You'll be responsible for entering monthly meter readings on the SRECDelaware website. That's how we'll create your SRECs. And then SREC payments will be made monthly by direct deposit. As long as you create an SREC every month, you'll be paid the next month for those SRECs. And then one last note, the solar loan program. So the DESEU is going to be launching the Energize Delaware Residential Solar Loan Program. So we just wanted to put that out there during this webinar here, and that program provides low-interest loans to credit-qualified homeowners in Delaware. And the goal is to encourage the purchase of customer-sited and owned renewable generation. So for more information about that program, you can contact the SCU directly. And they're holding a workshop for installers to learn more about this program on May 31st at 9:30 at the DESCU. So feel free to contact them if you would like to register for that program or if you just have any more information about that program. And that program will be replacing the SCU Upfront Purchase Program, which is ending. Okay, so now we're going to address any questions you might have. Feel free to type them in the chat box, and we will take a look at those questions and get back to you on the answers shortly. So it looks like I already have some questions here, so I will answer those. But if you have any others, please feel free to type them in now. So someone asked, for new projects, is proof of site control required as part of the application? So that is not required as part of the application. So someone asked when the application button will be available. So the application window opens on May 29th at 9 a.m. So you won't see that button there until 9 a.m. on May 29th. So you'll be able to see that then and create a new application. So someone asked what the average price for SREC bids in 2016 was. So let me just bring that up. All of the past results are available on the SREC Delaware website. If you go to the home page and then click the documentation button, you can access all of the past year's results. So I can just give you, for 2016, I can just give you through the webinar the weighted average prices for each tier. But you can look at the website for more in-depth information. So for the pooled N1, E1, E2 tier, the weighted average price was $79.26. For the N2 tier, the weighted average price was $77.34. For the N3 tier, the weighted average price was $38.39. And then for the additional SRECs purchased by Delmarva, the average price was $77.93. But all that information is available on the website for you to take a look at. Unfortunately, we don't have any data for the new N4 and E3 tiers because this is the first year, so I can't give you any pricing information on that. So someone else also asked if there's any penalties if you bid for 15 SRECs to only produce 10. So no, there's no penalties unless your system's over 500 kilowatts. So chances are if you bid in at 15 SRECs, you probably have a small residential system, which would not be over 500 kilowatts, so there would be no penalties for underproducing in that situation. And someone else asked, if 20-year contract, what if the longevity of my existing system only lasts 10 years? What happens? So like I said, there's no penalty for underproducing. So if something happened to your system, you wouldn't be penalized for underproducing for the life of your contract. Okay, so someone asked, in the event that we are unsuccessful bidding for a new system and rebid as an existing system next year, what happens to the SRECs produced during that first year before the existing system bid is accepted? So if that is the case, we would not buy those SRECs that were created prior to you being accepted through the program. So as in this year's program, we're only buying SRECs due in 2017 and forward. If there was a program next year, it would most likely be that we'd only buy SRECs created June 2018 and forward. So we would not buy any SRECs that were created prior to you being accepted in the program. So those would be up to you to sell elsewhere. So someone asked if it's possible for SRECs to be resold in the secondary market. So these SRECs being bought through this program are being bought by Delmarva Power, and they will not be resold in a secondary market. You also can't resell your SRECs you're selling through this program in a secondary market. So once you accept the contract and they're being sold to Delmarva Power, you can't resell them. Someone asked if a PPA contract needs to be in place in order to bid. So you do need to have, the system needs to already have a site address and everything like that. So when you bid into the program, you're bidding for a system that you know is going to be built at a specific address and a specific system size. So it can either be a customer-owned system or a leased system, but you don't need to have a PPA contract, so it doesn't need to be leased. I'm not 100% sure if that's exactly what you're getting at there, but please feel free to give us a call or send us an email. We can go into that more in depth. So someone asked if the parts and labor bonuses apply to the $35 pricing of the SRECs after 10 years. So yes, those bonuses do apply to the second 10 years of the contract as well. So someone asked, in the example of the SREC commitment, we show the facility will produce 27,632 kilowatt hours, put the commitment at 20. So an SREC is produced every 1,000 kilowatt hours. I'm not sure in that example. That was just kind of a test application we were doing. So if you have any questions about exactly when you're doing the application, if that seems incorrect, please let us know and we can take a look. But I'm not 100% sure if the example that was in that application, what exactly was calculated there. So someone asked what happens if after we submit a bid, they need to change some of the materials contained in the solar system. For example, if the panels are not available when you install the system, if you decide to switch to different panels, that create a problem. So there is built into the contract a 5% system size change. So we allow you to change the system size up to 5% of what you bid into the application, just in situations like that. If you have to change more than 5%, you can just let us know, and we will. We do make exceptions for that if you have a reason why that's changed. We know obviously that does change sometimes in the process from when you get initially quoted something to when the solar system is actually built. So if you do find yourself in that situation, you can contact us and we can work on that with you. Someone asked if they have an SEU upfront SREC application in with the Green Grant Delaware program, and we have yet to finalize Part 2. You can still submit for the procurement. So if you've already submitted the Part 2 application, you cannot submit for the procurement. But if you have a Part 1 application, you haven't done the Part 2, you can still apply for the procurement. But if you have submitted a Part 2 application, we take that as that you intend to go with the SEU Upfront Purchase Program, and you cannot bid into the SRECDelaware program. Someone asked if there's an option to expand a project's one-year timeline, or if deposits automatically lost at the point if the project is not interconnected. So there are certain circumstances where we would extend that one-year timeline. If you are feel yourself getting close to that timeline, you don't think you're going to make it, we do allow you to submit a request for an extension, and then we'll forward those to the SEU. They'll review your request and then grant you an extension or not grant you an extension. But you do have that one-year timeline. That's when we expect it to be done, but there are certain exceptions we allow. Someone asked who they can contact to check their Delaware certification. So you can contact the Delaware Public Service Commission, and they'll be able to tell you if you have a Delaware State certification number or what that certification number is. I don't have their contact information offhand, but if you just Google Delaware Public Service Commission, you'll be able to find their phone number, and you can contact them to see if you have a Delaware State certification number. Someone asked if the bid deposit is forfeited if you're awarded a contract but don't sign the documents by August 1st. So yes, so if you do win a contract but you don't follow through with the contract, then you will have your bid deposit forfeited. If you don't think for some reason you can get the documents back to us by August 1st, you can contact us and request an extension, and we can take that into consideration of granting you an exception to return those documents to us. Someone asked if there'll be a spot auction this year. So we don't have that information from Delmarva Power yet. If they do decide to hold a spot auction, we'll post it on our website and send out an email blast to everyone that's on our email list about that spot auction. Or if you're already in the program and you have extra SRECs to sell, we'll contact you as well, letting you know you can bid those into the spot auction. But unfortunately, we don't have any information one way or another if there's going to be a spot auction this year. Someone said if we increase the size of residential system, are those additional SRECs added to the contract? So they won't be automatically sold through your contract, but if you do increase the size of your system, you can bid into the program again next year for that addition to your system and have an additional contract for that second set of SRECs through the addition to your system. So someone asked, is the information also accessible for how many bids were accepted, rejected in prior years? So we don't have that information publicly available. Someone asked if there's a rebid needed from too many bid ties, will this delay the bid results? So we will try to get those bid ties resolved before the June 15th date that we're going to release the results, but we can't guarantee that. So what we've done in the past is if there's certain tiers that we do have the results for, we'll announce the results for those tiers, and then we'll have to withhold the results for the tiers where there's a bid tie until that bid tie has been resolved, and then we'll announce those results once they're available. So someone asked if you do an addition, do you have to have a separate revenue grade meter for the addition? So if the addition is not included in the contract, then we wouldn't require that be that have a revenue grade meter. But if you are bidding those SRECs into the program, you would need to have a revenue grade meter. Also, you can tie the addition into the existing revenue grade meter, and that would be acceptable as well. So we only require the revenue grade meter for the system that is taking part in our program. So I guess if you put on an addition, you weren't going to bid into the program, you wouldn't need a revenue grade meter technically for the initial system to still be in the program. Okay, so that was the last question that I received. If you have any other questions or any specific questions related to the system that you plan on entering into the auction, please give us a call or send us an email. We can help you out with that specific application, your specific system. Hopefully we covered all of your questions here. But like I said, please let us know if you have any other questions. We recorded this webinar, so we'll be posting on the website in a few hours. Hopefully there'll be a link to that on the website, and you can go back and rewatch it if you have any questions, or if you're an installer, you can send the link out to your customers for them to watch. Thank you, and have a great rest of your day.